Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about stuff that I've been doing for myself, stuff that I've been doing for my clients that involves deltoids, and the fact that for a lot of people, myself included, many of my clients included, delts seem to be a very, very high volume resistance muscle group. And I've seen other people out there talk about that. Guys like Dr. Mike have talked about that as far as getting your delts to grow to any respectable degree, they seem to need a lot more total training volume and reps than most of the other muscles in your body. Uh, that certainly seems to be the case for me. I've always struggled with delt development, especially my side delts. And even though I've done tons of strength training maxes, the heavy work doesn't seem to work particularly well for my delts. And my shoulders tend to become a weak link in things like my bench press, in spite of having a overhead press, a strict press is 225 plus. So why is that? Well, it has to do with the fact that the delts have a lot of functions relative to a lot of other muscles in the body. They're very small, and they're used to doing very, very high workloads relative to their size. And unlike a lot of muscles, people say, well, isn't that like quads and stuff the same way? Well, no, those are much, much larger muscles in which the load can be more dispersed and they have less actual functions. When you start looking at the delts, you're dealing with three different heads of the same muscle, right? All those get used a lot. Every sort of press is going to use a front delt. Every sort of pull for the upper back, whether it's a row, a face pull, a pull up, a chin up, they use the rear delts. Anytime you lift your arms up to the side, uses the side delts. Well, the point there is that these muscles are used to high output use because those heads are all connected. Anything that uses one of them will cause some effect and activation in the others. Right? Your delts get used for everything. And your body is structured in such a way that it kind of knows that. And the way the fibers and everything are inside that muscle is that it's just simply used to being used all the time. Right? There's no muscle in your upper body that really gets more use than your delts. So accordingly, it takes a lot to make it grow. It takes a lot to make it grow. People will then say, well, how come a lot of these bodybuilders have big jack delts? Well, because delts are one of the three muscles in the body that have the largest number of androgen receptors. Okay, most bodybuilders use tons of androgens, and a lot of them use stronger androgens with very high receptor binding affinity. We're not going to go into names. And they do a lot of volume. Well, of course they get big, massive round delts. Right? Of course they do. For everybody else, whether you're completely lifetime natural, never going to touch anything in your life, which I think constitutes the majority of people out there, realistically, right? All the way to the conservative user, they don't get that same effect. So we've got to put in a lot of volume. We have to. I do, and mine are still lagging even in this video, and I've been working the heck out of them. I'm seeing some improvement, but it's coming slow. So what does that mean? It means we have to work all the different angles. So you guys will notice for me, because I have train upper body every other day, right? Every other day is a pressing day. I do some sort of high volume work for the front head, which also hits the other heads. Don't get me wrong, there's some work there. But it's no longer about the heavy work. Yes, I do heavy benching. I do really high reps these days, 10 to 15 on pressing. And it's going to be an overhead press or an incline bench every other workout, right? The entire anterior deltoid and everything near it gets hit very good with those, including the upper chest, all that stuff. Those are high priority lifts for me. I give those a lot more volume than other stuff. I'll do 5 sets of one of those up in anywhere from that 10 to 15 rep range, usually 12 plus. Every upper body workout. Well, that means at least 3 times a week. So it's being like 15 sets. People say, well, that's crazy. Well, it's what I seem to need. Same thing with my clients. So if I have clients who have, again, lagging shoulders, we do 5 sets of incline or overhead press all their workouts that are upper body days, which is twice a week. I generally run clients, and I generally prescribe for most people a 4-day upper lower. I do not prescribe what I do personally to other people for good reason. You don't have my lifestyle. But that ends up being 10 sets for those guys. Okay? That's in addition to whatever benching and stuff they're doing. You're talking about 10 sets of incline or overhead press. That's actually how my client Mikey built those big delts. I was like, man, what's he doing? A bunch of laterals? No, he just does high volume overhead pressing. But that's the thing I've noticed. Focusing on heavy tension on those movements doesn't produce the same effect. It'll do it for the chest. The delts seem to really need the reps. They need the volume. What else do I do? Every one of those upper body workouts, I do 5 sets of higher rep laterals to failure. Lateral raises. Now you guys will see I do mine up against a bench. Which everyone who watches my vlogs knows that. If they watch them, if they get late into the vlogs, that's usually past the 10-minute mark in each training workout. Which I vlog all of it. For those unfamiliar with that, every one of my workouts gets filmed and we discuss what I'm doing. In my case, I do 5 sets of laterals. Any of my guys who have, again, lagging delts, we end up doing at least 3 sets. In addition to the others, some of them do 5. Depends on what their time is like. Because a lot of guys have limited time. They don't have 2 hours. They do at least 3. So we're talking right off the bat. Most of my clients who, again, need the shoulders, who have any sort of lagging shoulder like that, which is common, right, they're doing 5 sets for the front delts every upper body workout that includes some carryover to the side delt, and at least 3 sets for the side delt. It's a minimum of 6. Minimum of 6. In my case, it ends up being 15 sets of those per week, taken to failure. Because it's a very volume resistant muscle, especially that side delt, if you don't pretty well take these smaller exercises to failure, you don't really know how many reps you had in reserve, do you? For me these days, it's in the ballpark of 20 reps to failure. Again, much higher reps than I would use for a lot of muscles. But that's what we have to do. Now, people will say, well, Jason, is that bodybuilding? No, not necessarily. I don't endorse bodybuilding. But if you need bigger delts to have a bigger bench, if you need bigger delts to have a more stable shoulder structure, you're going to have to hypertrophy these muscles. Yeah, it becomes necessary. If you want a stable shoulder girdle and a strong shoulder girdle in order to bench press, overhead press, things like that safely, you're going to need to develop these muscles. Now, obviously, anyone who cares about how they look, it becomes doubly important, because that's the muscle that people judge your aesthetics by. It really is it's probably the most important one. It's not biceps. It's actually your shoulders. Okay, it really is. Makes a bigger difference. What about rear delts? Well, tons and tons of rows. This is where people will point out stuff. Well, I do chin-ups or pull-ups. Say chin-ups and pull-ups are great. I endorse those exercises. I've done plenty of them. They don't hit the rear delts as effectively as a row does. A strict pin lay row hits your delts more. We know that rowing movements hit the rear delts based on every study that's looked at it more than a pull-up or a chin-up. You have to do a lot of pull-ups to work the rear delts. You have to do a lot. Most of you guys aren't going to dedicate that much time to pull-ups every week. I promise you you're not. Promise you you're not. You're not going to do 500 pull-ups a week. So that's not going to be your solution. You need rows. And possibly face pulls. And most of my guys do banded face pulls. High reps. But I get around a lot of that personally because I prescribe very high volume rowing. I don't let anyone do less than like 12 sets of rows a week as far as my clients go. That's usually the lower end. Some of my guys do 20. I personally do 30. Okay. That'll work the rear delt too. But if you start looking at the amount of volumes involved, let's set aside squat, bench, deadlift, all that stuff. Let's just look at the supplemental work. Most of even my clients who seem to struggle with delt development are doing 12 to 20 sets of rows every week. Usually at least 3 or 4 sets of face pulls. All right, that's a ton of rear delt work. Talking 20 plus sets. They're doing 6 to 10 sets of lateral raises just for the side head, which is being hit by all this other stuff. And then something in the range of 10 sets of overhead press or incline, depending upon their structure. When you start doing the math, we're talking about 30 to 40 work sets of 10 plus reps for the total delt structure done in a week when it's all added up. I'm obviously doing more than that. And this is what I personally find needs to happen. Like if it doesn't, delts will lag for people who are not genetically gifted in that area. They simply seem to need more volume across the board than most other muscle groups. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.